All right, I'm going to call to order the Carver Redevelopment Authority meeting at 5:10. And Mr. Kevin?
And I am going to call the North Carver Water District to order as well.
Thank you. George, thank you for coming. Basically, what we'd like to do is, the two entities here, we're trying to get a good grasp on where the status of the URP is. I want to give a little background on where you came from, where you are today. Most in particular, we're trying to find out what the status is of the project.
Sure.
Where you stand on the MEPA process and and all that end of it. So be as detailed as you can. Obviously, the public would love to know who's coming, but I know you don't have that answer to that question, so.
Right.
If you could give us an update on that, and also I know that you have a permit through the planning board also to bring in fill. Want to know where that status is, how much if you're going to give us an estimate, how much of the fill has been brought in, how the site sits today, and where you're at.
Sure.
So I'd like to thank you for coming and being with us, because we're all kind of wondering where we're at. At the end of your presentation or the discussion, I'm going to open up to questions from the board.
Sure.
Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name's George McLaughlin, and I'm a manager and 50% owner of Route 44 Development, LLC, the developer of the project. I think in way of background, and maybe I'm covering ground you already know, but we acquired this site, my partner, Bob Delholm, and I. Bob owns the other 50% of Route 44 Development a number of years ago. At that time, we owned approximately 127 acres in Carver, but it was, we owned the proverbial hole in the donut, but we didn't own the donut around the hole. So we, sought permission for an urban renewal plan. The town granted that, as you know, and we've spent the last years studying every inch of that property, doing all of the engineering. We have spent millions and millions of dollars of our own money because we thought this was an absolutely wonderful site. With the new Route 44 going by it, of course, and it being at the intersection of Route 58, and having Cisco having built their 650,000 square foot regional warehouse distribution facility one exit down from us in Plimpton. All of these large corporations go through a similar due diligence and analysis as far as access, demographics, travel time, et cetera. And I felt with my background in real estate investment, and Bob felt with his background, this was just a great site. And I have to tell you, it's been a pleasure to do business in Carver. I just think that the boards have really done a good job of looking out for the interests of Carver, but also working creatively with the developer and the owner. So I commend you people for donating your time and your energy and your creativity to help this process go forward, because it is a public-private partnership. This was a piece of land that for years laid fallow and nothing was going on with it. And Bob and I saw an opportunity, and we're glad that the town saw an opportunity and has worked with us so well. And so, the first things first, we've hired the top brokerage firm in the state, we think, Newmark Frank. And what we felt about this site was, I went around and looked at all what I thought were the competitive sites in the area. And as you know, as we all read in the papers, everything's going e-commerce, everything's going bigger. It seemed in the industrial market, everybody wanted bigger and bigger warehouse distribution facilities. They wanted 500,000 square foot. They wanted 1 million square feet and further. And I didn't want to spend millions and millions of dollars of my money and Bob's money and then figure out at the end, geez, we spent all this money, we have all this engineering done, but, we've built it, but no one's coming. I wasn't going to do that. And in fact, I think this is a great site, and our brokers think this is one of the best sites around. They really think it's the only site inside of 495 where you can lay down 1 million square feet. I looked at all of our competition, and I really feel like we don't have any competition, because when you look at similar sites, what I say to people, real estate development is really not rocket science. I mean, it's like anyone who's, I don't care if you're building a garage, if you're building a house, or what you're building. You have to spend your money judiciously, and you have to look at the land. And the problem that a lot of our competing sites have is they're totally forested with trees. Well, I mean, that's an expense to take down the trees. They have crazy changes in topography. That's a huge expense. They have ledge. That's a huge expense. They have convoluted access through neighborhoods. That's a turnoff. And what I love about this site, and what our brokers love about the site, is, we're practically right there on 44. We don't have the topographic problems. We don't have the ledge problems. It isn't a forested site. We, as I say, have literally spent millions of dollars doing all of the engineering on the site. So we have every last inch of that site engineered. We filed our draft environmental impact report, and we are filing our final environmental impact report with MEPA on February 28th. VHB is spearheading that for us, and they say that we will have our final environmental impact report certificate from MEPA by like mid-April. And Stephen, I don't know if you have a slide that shows the assessor's plans or the individual parcels.
I have this one.
Yeah, that's perfect. As we've been doing the engineering, as we've been doing the permitting, we've also been, if I can stand and point out a couple of things, we've also been negotiating with the property owners to acquire properties around us. This parcel right here is our parcel 20-2. Parcel 20-2-1 is the Walsh parcel. That's approximately 30 acres. We acquired that parcel in January of this year. We closed on that. Prior to that, we had purchased the Allen parcel, which is parcel 22-3-A, and we had acquired the Tassinari parcel, which is 22-3. As you will recall from the urban renewal process, the Tushers made a plea that their property be kept out, and I stood up during that process, and they were having some personal issues at the time, and I said, well, I like to treat people as people treat me, so if I was having the issues that they were having at the time, I'd like people to back off from me and let me live my life. So I said, fine, cut them out of the project so that they can't be taken by eminent domain. So, the board did that. I think it was the right decision. But what I have done over the last number of years is every 6 months or so, I gave the Tushers, Bruce and Karen, a call and said, look, I don't mean to be a pain in the neck. If you don't want me to call you anymore, I won't call you. But I was just checking in to see if maybe your plans have changed. Maybe you want to move to Florida. Maybe you want to sell your house, whatever. I just want you to know that if at any time you're interested, I'm here. And they said, no, give us a call every 6 months and check in and see what's going on. We don't mind talking to you. And so I'm happy to report that we purchased their property in January, they bought another property in Carver, and I said to them, look, go out and see, because they wanted to get into something with a little less maintenance and what have you, all on one floor and what have you. And so I said to them, look, go out. Don't worry about the price. Just go out and check out the market, see what's out there, see if you find something. And if you find something you're interested in, pick up the phone and talk to me, and let's see if we can put a deal together. So they did that. They get back to me. We've been talking pretty seriously for the past, 6 months or so. And they found a property. And so what I did is I closed with them. And then I said, I don't need your house right now, so you can stay there for free. Just stay there for a couple of months, 2, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it takes, so that you can, in an orderly fashion, move out to your new house over time, and what have you. So they're lovely people. We put that together with them. I see Alice Cole is here this evening, and I've known Alice and her family for years. Great, longtime citizens of Carver, and we've been going back and forth with Alice and her brother Jimmy on their property. Couple of issues have come up, and we've been sharing information back and forth, but I'm confident that we can have a deal with Alice and her family in the next month or so, and we'll close in an orderly fashion there. So that's the update on the Cole property. It's funny, once we had the urban renewal plan passed, you just can't go out and acquire all these properties overnight, and I've been the person, I'm the chief cook and bottle washer, so I don't have lawyers calling up, I just pick up the phone and call everybody myself and start the dialogue, and it takes time when you're dealing with all these different parcels. But I know you told me, and Mr. Chairman, you were very clear, and your board was very clear, look at, eminent domain is the last resort. You gotta go out there and try your best to acquire these parcels yourself. And so, I've done that. I've also had serious talks with Mr. Webby on his parcel. Webby's parcel is this parcel here, 24-1 and 24-2. Those are both key parcels because, as you know from studying the plan, that's where we're gonna run our access in. Mm-hmm. So I've known Mr. Webby for years, and he and I have struck an agreement in principle, and I imagine we'll be, I think we'll be closing on that parcel probably about the same time that we close with the Cole, sometime in the next 2-3 months, something along that magnitude of time. I've also had talks with Mr. Melville. He owns a bog, and I know I believe, and I may have this messed up, I believe his property is 2210 and 2210-1. His daughter is in the house out there, and she has a kennel, or a kennel that she runs out there. I've had some discussions with him. I think we can probably close the gap. We're a little bit of ways, but he's kind of a cagey negonegotiator, and I'm not a shrinking violet either. So we've been going back and forth. I mean, he's a nice fellow, and I think my instincts tell me that we can close the gap. My instincts also tell me that the last parcel, and I've also had conversations with the people who own these fringe parcels, and I'm sure I can end up buying those. I've talked to all of them. We're going back and forth. I really don't need them, but I think I just want to have them just to kind of own everything out there. I think I'm gonna be able to buy all of the parcels out there without using the power of eminent domain. And it's been, a lot of work and a lot of give and take, but you folks have been reasonable and good to Bob and I, and so I hear what you're saying, and I take it to heart, and so I've been working hard in the background to put this together. One parcel I don't think I'm gonna be able to acquire, and is gonna have to be taken by eminent domain, is the Borofsky parcel. I've had conversations with Mr. Borofsky. He owns this parcel here, 22-3-1. It's about, I think it's 7.8 acres, call it 8 acres. Every time I talk to him, he tells me it's worth $300,000 an acre, or $2.4 million. I think it's worth probably $30,000 an acre, or 240. I'd pay him more than that, but I mean, it's it's an irregularly shaped parcel. Here's the parcel here. I mean, I don't even know. I took geometry back in the 10th grade. I don't even know what you'd call that, but it's a completely irregularly shaped interior parcel. He does have the benefit of a permit to have a contractor's yard or something. He's got a site business that he runs out of there, and I don't think we're gonna be able to come to terms with him. I mean, unless he gets realistic, I just think that's the one out of all these parcels. And I think if you folks, Carver's a small town, and I'm sure it has gotten back to you about how I have conducted myself in negotiations with your fellow citizens and what have you. Maybe it hasn't, I don't know, I just assume it has. And I think I've been more than fair with everybody. And the reason I've been that way is because, again, I treat people as I would like people treating me. If the tables were reversed, I would not like the feeling that I was being taken advantage of because this person maybe had the Carver Redevelopment Authority behind him with the power of eminent domain. That just wouldn't sit right with me if I was on the receiving end of that. So I really, have negotiated more than fairly with all of these folks. And, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, because I've been able to acquire or put all of these parcels under agreement in a very, cordial, professional, considerate manner. And so, and the reason I've done that, and the reason why we have forged ahead and spent the money on the engineering and the permitting and what have you, is because our brokers have advised us that these big users, and I know you want to know who they are. I've been talking to a couple of big users here. They don't want to hear, oh yeah, everything's great, and sign with us, and we'll go out and get the permits. We'll go out and get the wetlands delineated. We'll straighten out this problem and that problem. We'll go and get our MEPA permits, because all of these people, as you probably know, and I don't care, whether it's Amazon or who it is, they all want to be in the ground at a certain date. And they don't want to hear, oh yeah, we can get all these permits, it's not going to be a problem, because it's always a problem. Yeah, and they've seen all the problems, and they don't want to hear about any of the problems. They want to know you have your permits and you're ready to roll. And so what the broker has advised us is, look it, this is the best site around, go out and spend your money, get your act together, get your permits, and then they'll come. So we're, as I say, we'll have our final environmental impact report certificate mid to late April. And then, that's the major permit. As you folks know, you're in the special district under 40A, section 43D.
3D, right.
So, that's a great assurance to a buyer or a tenant or whatever, because they have to have their permits within 180 days. And so that's a real positive. And so what we're doing is, we're putting together a brochure, which I hope to have done by the time the FEIR certificate comes out, or before. Probably wait till the certificate actually is in our hands so we can include it in the brochure. And what the broker has advised is, look at, we're gonna do a national marketing campaign. We're gonna hit it hard, we're gonna spend a lot of money on this, and, we're gonna lay out everything you own, all the permits you have, what the issues are, whether it be water, wastewater, electricity, whatever the issue is, and the solution. One of the things we spent a lot of time over the last year doing is hiring a myriad of consultants to advise us on those different areas, and to say, okay, this is the issue with water. We get plenty of water, but we don't have pressure. So we're probably gonna have to build a tower, and we're gonna have to have a tank on ground level. And we're gonna have to have a pump house. And the combination of that and the fact that so long as Alice Cole continues to be reasonable, and her brother, we're gonna have some nice reservoirs there. There are other sources of water to supplement, and, we're gonna have plenty of water to solve anybody's water needs, whether it be, fire suppression or what it is. And so that's just one of the issues. The biggest issue, and I don't think really it's an issue, it's just something we have to focus on and solve. My attitude is always, if you can put a man on the moon, you can solve most of the little issues that are facing us there. Really, the only issue, and I say it's an issue, but I really don't think it's going to be that big a deal in the final analysis, is getting the electricity to the site that these people are going to need. Probably going to need 5 megawatts of electricity, and I've already spoken to Eversource at length. I have pretty good contacts at Eversource, and they've told us that if it's 5 megs, we can have it there in 12 months. If you needed more than 5 megs, then it may be a little bit of an issue, but as I say, it's just a question of money and focus and manpower. We've talked extensively with the Baker administration about this project, and, as you know, and as Mike Milanowski can say, and Stephen can tell you, they want to see development in areas like this, in areas like Carver. And so I just think a combination of money, connections, and political pressure can solve that issue. So that's, I don't know if that's, I answered all of your questions, Mr. Chairman, but those are the highlights, and I'm happy to answer any questions or fill in any gaps that I left out.
The only one that you left out that I'm gonna, just for a brief overview for the community, before we get into questions, was your permit with the planning board on bringing in fill, where you are at that stage. I know you're aware of, we've had some concerns on the road conditions and speeding and stuff like that.
Right.
So if you could go into that with a little bit of your side of it and where the project stands, that will be helpful, just to give a good broad description of where you're at on that site.
Yeah, as far as the fill operation is concerned, it's really been in a small area of the site. I know we have permission for a lot of fill. I don't think we're gonna deal with a fraction of that. Just wanna get my bearings here. Most of the fill operation has been going on in roughly
Yep.
this area of the
Yep.
site.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's really my partner Bob Delhome's area of expertise. As a matter of fact, I tried to contact him today because I figured you were gonna have a question about that. And I just got back from vacation. He just left on vacation, and he's in the mountains of Panama someplace, so he was incommunicado. But, you know, you'll have to excuse my ignorance on this. I'm happy to get back to you on it. Our permit, Stephen, is for, what is it, $1.2 million?
That's what I'm recalling, and
Yeah.
frankly, I have regular correspondence with Stantec every time we get a new shipment in.
Yeah.
And once a month, I do meet them on site.
Yeah, I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but you asked the question, so I just don't want to sit here and give you a non-answer. And Stephen, you keep me honest. The permit, I was just going from memory, was $1.2 million. I think maybe we've brought in 200,000. Does that sound right?
I'm making a note to have to confirm that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I will circle back to both boards after I confer with the applicant.
Yeah, I think that's, maybe it's 150, but that's the order of magnitude. And I really, you know, we're gonna be bringing some more fill in. I don't think we're going to go, let me just hold off on that
Sure.
and let Bob deal with that.
That's fine.
But that's where, you know, that's where things stand now. As far as I know, we've been taking care of the road, and I know that, you know, there've been some issues here and there. I thought they were solved. One of the things we did recently is when we acquired the Walsh parcel, we moved the gate up to the top of Park Avenue, because we didn't want to have people going in there and dumping and what have you. And so the gate's closed when we're not open for business and receiving loads, and then the only other way you can get into the property is to go through the Coles property on that access road, and we're blocked off access there with Jersey barriers and what have you. So, you know, I'm really proud of the way the site looks. You know, when we took it over, I mean, it was an absolute disaster. I don't know, maybe people have some issues with the way it looks now, but I mean, I think we've cleaned it up, and we're gonna continue to clean it up and take control of it. If you do have any issues with it, I'm happy to address them and have them taken care of promptly.
Thanks, Bob. So I've asked for this to be a joint meeting with the water district, because they're a key role into this, and there was a very large investment made by the public for the water district. So I thank every one of the commissioners for being here. I am one of the commissioners also. I wear multiple hats in town, as everybody knows. So right now, I want to go through some of the questions that you might have for Bob. Anybody wants to ask any questions, just let me know, and I'll, Joanna, you got the floor.
Oh, great. I passed out to you and the committee some documents that I collected along with, you're a new member, so I thought you might want to see some of these documents. I had some questions for, what was your first name again?
It's George.
George, I can call you George. For George. And George, the information I put on your desk typically is the patterns or the way you had showed us configurations and what you could put on the property. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of wondering, yeah, they're old, but I didn't know if they were still, you know, in your mind, and we should keep these documents as well.
There is, I think the best one is this one that shows the 1.1 million distribution center
Okay,
and the
okay.
two buildings above it.
Okay,
And then there are, Stephen, you may be able, put your hands on it quicker than I can. The preferred alternative in the, in our, it's in the urban renewal plan, it would
Yeah,
be,
it's in there, the maps are in the center, all folded, these are all the folded maps, the scenarios. Not exactly sure which one you're.
it's the preferred alternative in the draft environmental impact report. And it's very similar to
that
this
one?
one.
Okay,
Okay, however, it shows the 1.1, a little different orientation.
okay,
And then it shows, I think it shows 1 million or 1,000,001, and then it shows like a 500,000 square foot building here,
Okay.
and then a 150,000 square foot building. But basically, it shows roughly this configuration, 3 buildings, one approximately 1 million, the other approximately 500,000.
Something you're looking for? Or is that
No,
the
it's a
same?
little different, it's a little different one, similar.
well, maybe when Steve, you get with Steve, he can send us
Yeah,
a
Steve, if you-
preferred one, so we
Yeah.
can see, because today, we're 2019 already, and these are kind of old, but.
yeah, no, it's, you know, what's funny is it's very similar
Okay,
to this,
okay,
and it's in the draft environmental impact report. So if you, Steve, if you can dig that out and send that around to the various board
Okay,
members.
so-
That's the one that, the brokers like the best, and that's the one that, different parties that have been interested in the property like the
okay,
best.
so we could expect that. The other thing is, the access, I remember we went round and round with access, and people on Montello wanted a gate, they didn't want anybody going down there, as you remember. We ended up, and I put this one in there, this first one says potential access reconfiguration. And if you look at it, it sits on top of where the tushes are now, that's great.
Yeah,
But you could see you're coming in the current Carver, you haven't got any Webby in here at this point. As you said, you were looking to have the Webby come in. You're coming in, you're not necessarily using the Cole Road, but you're coming up in that upper corner. And we talked all about that, and you're gonna come into the Park Ave, and there's some sort of a boulevards, or whatever you call those things, some intermediary thing here that's supposed to be a gate at some point.
what the latest and best thing,
Actually, George, can I just jump in there? Sure. What you're dealing with a public way, and when the plan was approved, there was no delineation on what would happen with the public way. Yes, there were some people in Plimpton that wanted to have it dead-ended because their end of Montello Street's a dirt road, and they were afraid that, you know, some trucks would be going through there. But you first have to deal with public safety, and right now, again, it was never approved to close that down or put a gate up. It was requested. And before we have a discussion like that, we really have to get the chiefs of fire departments in both towns involved and to determine what the best course of action is there. I think what your plan shows and what VHB had presented was that where you have Montello is kind of like the top of the T right now, and then the stub road goes off of that.
Yeah.
Is that this configuration in essence kind of reverses that, where Montello would be the throughway into the site, and then you'd have a stop sign, if you will, for the Plimpton part of the Montello going into this piece, so that you wouldn't have through traffic in there. You'd still be able to move in there, but there'd be no gate. You couldn't keep a through movement, you'd have to stop. And that was kind of what the final configuration was, again, based upon public safety issues.
Right. I was thinking too, when we were talking all about it, this is new to these guys here, but, that top part, we were gonna put a gate on Park Ave. That's where, I remember that.
Yeah, what, Stephen Cole just went down to get the draft environmental impact report, because that is the best example about what the of what the latest thinking is and the latest access. And as you'll see, what happens in that plan is, we have here's the Webby property.
Right,
Okay, so the main access comes in across the Webby property and then goes into and uses the Cole Road. And then that gives you a direct shot right into the 1,000,000 square foot, 100,000
so that's your
square foot.
potential?
That's what it's probably gonna be.
Okay.
Okay, so it's gonna come in from there, and then it's gonna loop around up here.
Right.
Okay? And what I think we'll probably end up doing, and it's funny, thank you, Stephen. Yeah. So, yeah, if John, if you wanna, there it is, and if you could pass that around.
I will.
That's the latest and greatest
Okay, see,
thinking,
they're
that's what
coming
we've
in
shown
here.
NEPA,
Then they go in that-
that's what everybody likes, and,
This was the exit.
Yeah. The exit, they have to go this way.
And George,
Yeah.
that would
Come
have
out,
to be
you have to go
adopted by
this
the
way.
planning board and or the board of selectmen to lay out the public roadway.
right,
That reconfiguration.
right, so that's, these are concept plans, those are the plans that everyone likes. Everybody knows that we don't want anybody going through, Plimpton in that neighborhood, and to be frank, I don't want the neighborhood coming down through us, because if we're gonna be running a lot of
Right.
truck
So
traffic through
is the
there.
potential going back, as Mike has says, the two towns are gonna have to meet to put some sort of a gate?
They don't, I don't think anybody wants a gate.
No one wants a gate.
No, they don't want a gate. They've told us they don't want a gate, and I don't think we want a gate, and really what it gets into is.
How are you gonna negate somebody, your truck, or the traffic on this Montello, how are you gonna reduce it?
Because I think, you asked the question, I'm gonna give you an answer, and I really shouldn't, but I'm going to, because I hate when people say to me, oh, I'll get back to you.
You have to tell the truth, because,
no,
Amy
I'll-
Klobuchar, I love her because she tells the truth.
I always tell the truth, it's just I get myself in trouble sometimes because
That's okay.
I tell you too much.
That's okay.
All right. I'm not a traffic expert. Stephen and I were talking about this today. This is up to the traffic experts, it's up to the officials in your town, really, and secondarily Plimpton, okay? But my thinking, from a selfish standpoint, is this, and from a safety standpoint. I want trucks to be able to get into that site, circulate around that site, and get out of that site as quickly, as safely, and as easily as possible. We all know that there's a problem with all the monkey business going on at the Dunkin' Donuts and people pulling in, and so we're just gonna eliminate that monkey business, okay? So one of the ways we're going to do it, I think, and again, I'm not VHB, it's their call, but I think what's gonna happen is, I think we're gonna end Montello Street, up in this area, okay? And so what's gonna happen with Montello Street is we're gonna bring our road in here, it's gonna go in there. Montello Street is almost gonna become a part of our internal circulation. Access is gonna be cut off down here, because I don't want people coming into our site from this location. We want to avoid, people trying, who knows what they'll try and do now? We put a light here and maybe they'll, who knows what they're gonna do, But if they can only go into the site and then come out of the site, they're not gonna like that.
Right.
So we're probably gonna cut it off down here, and then up here, we're gonna make the turn such that, it'd be physically impossible for a truck, an 18-wheeler, to make that turn and go up through that neighborhood. And I think what we may end up doing is just, and I don't know, I'm just talking off the top of my head, Stephen and I were talking about it, make the connection on the Carver part of that section of Montello Street, maybe be just some kind of a, you still maintain access, but maybe it's permeable access, maybe it's crushed stone or something, so God forbid something happens in there and you have to get fire trucks in there, you have to get ambulance in there, whatever.
Yeah.
They can come through Plimpton on an emergency basis,
Okay.
but you can't use it regularly on any type of basis. And so you don't have a gate there, which, I'm happy with a gate myself, but all the experts tell me, no, you can't have a gate, you can't have a gate. That causes too much trouble between the two towns and
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything. So I say, fine, no gate.
Okay.
But I want it so that that's really just an emergency access. I don't want the cars from that neighborhood coming into our site, and I don't want our people going up through their site.
Okay, so by cutting off some of the Montello on our side, that eliminates their wanting to come through, because they're stuck, they ain't gonna go anywhere.
Where are they gonna go?
Yeah.
They can't go down to the Dunkin' Donuts, because it doesn't go through there anymore. So why are they gonna come onto our road?
Right.
And then have to get onto the main truck access across Webby, only to be stuck at a light?
Right,
I mean, if they're looking for the longest way out of their neighborhood, that's the longest way.
Yeah,
The shortest
true.
way is just to go out.
I've just been queued here, I just have one last question. Steve gave us a printout of the 3 parcels that you just alluded to us. I take the Carver Reporter. I just have a question on the Walsh property.
Yeah.
It's the FY17 assessment, 1.1, almost 1.2 million, and it says it was sold for 850,000. Could you just tell us the difference?
Yeah, we paid it, and it was, actually, you know what, I don't, I think we should talk about that in executive session at a
That's
later
okay.
date.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions,
Yeah.
but we're in a public forum now, and, there were a lot of other considerations.
Okay.
I mean, that involved relocation benefits. There were a lot of things involved in that 850,000, besides
Radius,
the
you
land.
can't get a
Okay.
truck that way,
That's okay.
Thanks, Joanne.
I'm fine.
this way.
Anybody else? Mr. Bob?
Yeah.
Just so everybody
Very
knows, we
quick.
got less than an hour, so.
Yeah. All right, so, most of the material you're bringing in there is clay, and I know you're not the expert, and that's fine. All right, that's what it looks like to me, it's like a muddy grayish clay type thing that's being brought in there. How is that to be built on? Because it looks like that fill area is right where your 1.1 million.
Yeah,
of it.
let me say this. I know it's clean fill. I don't know what it is, because that's not my part of the team. But, as I understand it, and again, this falls in the category of me with Joanna talking about the access. I probably shouldn't be answering this, and Bob, if he wasn't in Panama right now, could answer this, but I know where you're going, and the answer is this. In the area where the filling's going on, there's also peat in that area too that's gonna have to be excavated. And basically, the building that gets built there is gonna have to be built on piles.
Okay,
And so it really, you have to be driving piles down through it anyways, and there's some special construction technique that I'm not familiar with. I know it involves piles, that's the extent of my knowledge. But this has come up at several meetings, and everybody says, well, but the building built there is gonna be on piles, with a slab on piles with something else, so it doesn't really matter.
all right. Can we get a copy of that final MIPA report? Can you guys
Sure,
have a digital copy
absolutely.
sent to us?
Yep.
I think that would be good for us to take a look at.
Yeah, Stephen, you're gonna get that from, that's gonna be filed February 28th, so you'll have that from VHB anyways.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you. And I will share that, of course, with
So the
Thank you.
map will be there too, right?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
it's
good.
gonna be that map that's in
Yeah,
there.
good.
The other one, you had brought before us before an issue with a title of a property, some little small spidgen one that you said maybe that we may have to take eminent domain. Just want to know where that process
Oh,
was
yeah,
with
that's
that
right,
one.
that's right. Yeah, we probably, yeah, there was a little gap. I'm glad you brought that up because that had slipped my mind. That issue's still hanging out there, so that's something we'll have to deal with.
I'm not a big fan of eminent domain, no matter what, just making sure it's on the record, here. The last one is, I know you don't have a quote end user as of this point, but we do have a town meeting coming up, whereas we'll be looking at, a marijuana language or whatnot. Would you be in favor or against anything like that being put in there for a processing plan or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't, I guess my answer is this. I know all of the towns and municipalities have to create these zones, so if you want to put an overlay zone here, that's fine with me. If that helps the town, town's been reasonable with me, so I want to be reasonable with the town, that's fine with me. To answer your second question, would I ever want a marijuana facility here? I have no problem with marijuana. I have no problem with people smoking it, growing it, whatever. I mean, you know, it's legal, whatever. My only issue is this. Purely from a financial standpoint, I think let's assume you put in an overlay district. I think I'd either sell the whole thing to some marijuana people or none of it, because I think that once you sell part of it, one of the problems that I read about all the time is the federal government. It's still illegal, and so the feds, you know, not really dealing with it, but, you know, you can't have bank accounts, or now they're setting up certain banks where you can't have a bank account. The problem is financing. You know, if you have a marijuana facility, let's assume you have Amazon, you know, AAA blue chip, you can't get any better than Amazon purely from a financing standpoint. And then you have a marijuana facility next to it. You've just kind of hurt the financeability of your development. So, I mean, that's my gut reaction. If you want to put an overlay district there, I have no problem with it. Would I actually sell to a facility or develop a facility? Sure, if they want to come in and develop 1,770,000 square foot facility and pay us a good dollar for it, have at it. If they want to put in a 150,000 square foot facility, I just think I would never advise anybody to do that, because it's too new. You know, there's too many open issues still.
No, that's fine. You went way beyond where I wanted you to go, but that's fine. It gives us an idea for a town meeting, the people that are listening to this and they go to town meeting,
Yeah.
that look at the options. Okay, I'm
No,
good.
and I think from the town standpoint, it's an isolated parcel, you're living up to your obligation, and, you know, it's probably a good location for it.
Somebody else got questions? Mr. Savory?
I guess, I know you're bringing stuff in, and maybe it's Bob who has this information, not you, but, I know that there's been stump removal on your docket for a long time. There's a big area that has
Right.
stump. Has that started yet, or are you?
No, that's what our plan is, and again, this is Bob's bailiwick, but I've been in enough meetings where it's come up. My understanding of what we're planning to do there, so this may not be 100% accurate, but my understanding is at some point in time further down the line, we're going to mine out all of that stump dump, and we are going to grind it on site and repurpose it as mulch or whatever.
Okay. And the other thing, tagging on to your question,
Yes.
you mentioned a processing for marijuana. I think that one of the questions that we have with the overlay districts coming forward is retail. Is that correct? Retail establishment?
No, I'm thinking more industrial of
Okay.
grow
I
and
just wanted to make sure.
process and
Okay.
whatnot.
Yeah, all right, yeah, because I know that retail, we have to allow a couple of retail places in Carver as well, and, based on everything you're saying, you wouldn't want to have anything retail in there.
Yeah, I don't think it's a site for retail, because I think that you have small groups of people, it's a heavy truck traffic area, I don't want, small carloads coming in and what have you.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
it was industrial.
Hold your thought, I
Okay.
want
Yep.
somebody
Nope,
else.
that's fine.
Water district,
I'm fine.
okay?
We are still looking at somewhere between 24,000 and 32,000 of Title V design.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that's my understanding.
Yeah, that was what you had presented to us last year, I believe, so.
Right, and the latest is there's gonna be a tower and a ground level.
Ground level cistern for fire suppression and a standpipe for pressure.
Precisely.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Before I get back
Yeah,
to
go
you.
ahead.
Our operator from Small Water, any questions, concerns?
No, not until it gets further along in the process, there's
Okay.
no real.
Bob?
until we start talking
Just
about real design.
actually a follow-up,
Right,
because I
exactly.
didn't remember that one, but the stumps, when you do start grinding, just my opinion, because I've taken them out of my property when they buried stumps, they smell horribly, and with the amount of stumps that are down there, that there be some type of a mitigation process to, the smell doesn't overwhelm.
Yeah, I assume Bob's company, is an award-winning company on dealing with issues like this, so I assume they're gonna have the correct, whether it's water or what it is, just to wet it down to keep it from getting airborne and causing any, whether we're crushing, because there's concrete in there, we're gonna crush and use as road base. So whether we're crushing concrete and keeping that from getting airborne and dust, there'll be, water suppression, and the same thing with the stumps. And we're all, Bob and I are a phone call away. I mean, Steve has my cell phone, Mike Milanowski has it. Anything ever comes up with any of you folks, I work, 24/7. I like working. And, so give me a call. I'm really proud of this project, and as I say, I'm not just playing to my audience here. It has been a pleasure dealing with your town and your boards. There's been a lot of give and take, and early on, I said to Bob, I think this is a good town to do business with, and that's why we've invested a lot of money and really done this thing the right way. So I hope you're pleased with everything we've done, and I really think this is gonna be just a great project. I'm very excited about it.
So before I ask my last couple of questions, Stephen, the Director of Planning, do you have any concerns, questions, anything like that you want to shoot off to Bob? I know you got his number, but just publicly.
We've been in touch fairly regularly every month. As I said, I go to the site. Sometimes I miss the site visit, but we get reports from our LSP, our licensed site professional. So I'm fairly confident that I know what's going in there. Mr. Belbin, to your query about the clay, there might be some clay in there. There's sometimes some light construction debris, like you'll see a barb or some concrete. For the most part, though, all of the infill that's coming in is clean, so to speak. My biggest concerns, frankly, are traffic. And as George mentioned, we've been talking fairly regularly. When I first started about a year ago, when the town manager and I went on a field trip throughout town, that was one of the areas, frankly, that caused me a great deal of consternation, just given the flow of traffic down there before the URP is online. We met last week or the week before with VHB. They heard our concerns. I believe that they're going to present a plan that's going to vastly improve the flow out there. Frankly, everything else is either ancillary or it's going to become, we'll become more aware of what our concerns will be as the plan moves through the process. But I'm very confident with what I've heard so far. I think that this is an excellent project for us. I think it's going to have a huge impact not only for the water district, but also to help improve the town's tax base. Myriad potential, to say nothing of the other industries and new emerging technologies that could possibly go there.
Thank you. My other question will be to the town administrator, if you could come up, Mike, for a minute. I want to be able to hear from the views or any concerns that the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen might have expressed to you on this project, or how the town has worked with the preferred developer on getting to the stage where we are now? Because I think it's important that the town knows.
Yeah, I think just to echo a few things, Steve, could you go back to one of those other slides just with the development plan? Do you have one more?
No,
with
just
the-
these two.
Okay, go back to the other one. And I think what George mentioned is, in Massachusetts, it's very unique to find an area where you can build a 500,000, million-plus square foot building, not have to meander through country roads, not have to go through a residential neighborhood, and are less than a quarter mile from the highway. And although we are going to see with development future traffic, is that you have the ability of putting in the appropriate signals and the widenings of the roads with the appropriate left-hand turns to actually resolve and improve the traffic flow with that. So I think over time, there's going to be a net benefit for traffic flow. Certainly, you still have the strip mall that's there, and that's going to require its own little configuration. But VHB, from the meeting that Steve and I were in, I think is looking at trying to resolve that, again, with some additional left-hand turn stacking capacity. So I think when you start to look at your issues, traffic is an engineering issue that can be resolved. The electricity is going to be something that's going to be engineered to resolve. The water, they've been working with everybody on the water, and we still have Middleborough that we can also work on some solution for that. But I think the developer is going to be able to come in and help take the lead for, what our future water system needs to be and help the North Carver Water District. Again, if we look at the North Carver Water District, that's probably the biggest issue we have in town, because that's subsidized about $250,000 a year by the town based upon the debt service that was done and the fact that many of the betterments were waived, and there was probably not the proper oversight when the construction plans were put together. But we have it, we own it, and we have to maintain that. And again, this provides a new use and a new ability of improving that going forward. So again, going to water, sewer will be self-designed on the site. Environmentally, again, we have no residential neighbors on the site within Carver. So I think from all of those aspects, it's a home run once the end users come onto the site. And then we get into the tax revenue. And, the town has been subsidized in the North Carver Water District, rezoned this property because this is the future economic engine for the town. And whether that's job generation or whether that's tax revenue, that's why this is a partnership. So Joanna passed out one of our early agreements where the developer came forward with money to the Redevelopment Authority so we could hire our own experts. And we've gone forward and done that. I think the eminent domain was probably the biggest issue that I think was real. There was heartburn for the property. And clearly, that's worked out with private-to-private sales. Whatever the developer's able to negotiate with the end users, that's none of our business because that's a private-to-private sale. And no one's forced to sell. If they're not getting a price they like, then they don't sign the documents. And so far, we've had several people sign documents, 4 so far, and probably 2 more in the near future. So I think that's a great thing. We did hear there's going to be one site that may need the action of the board, and and is trying to figure out what's fair and reasonable. I think the selectmen were very clear that they wanted to have the eminent domain be the last resort, as the Redevelopment Authority did. And if the developer's willing to offer a fair value based upon a fair appraisal, and even to pay more than that, but somebody wants 10 times more than what the market appraisal is, then the question is you guys have the tough decision to determine what's in the best interest of the town. Some person trying to get 10 times more than what the appraisal's worth, or for this development to go forward with the proper transportation access to it and creating a significant amount of jobs and
hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenue. And that's where you have to weigh out the public good.
Let's hope we never get there.
Well,
I think we're gonna get there. I'll tell you, and I think Michael has described that accurately, and it seems like yesterday I was in here and at the selectmen hearing, on the urban renewal plan, and I understand that people, Bob was just mentioning, he doesn't like eminent domain. I understand that people don't like eminent domain. But when you think about eminent domain, the key to eminent domain is what Michael just said. You cannot allow a town, a municipality, a city to be held hostage to one citizen who is being unreasonable. Because if that happens, you don't have roads, you don't have schools, you don't have water protection, you don't have anything. And I think the safeguard is, are you being reasonable? Have you tried in good faith to negotiate with this person? Have you offered them a reasonable amount of money? And I'm telling you, if you folks can go out and talk to any of the people I've bought from, any of my sellers, maybe you have already, I've been more than fair with all of these people. And this one person is just playing the hold-up game. I mean, I can't, that's it. And so the reason why I was willing to invest millions of dollars, and Bob is because, a part of our give and take with the Carver Redevelopment Authority was, I'm gonna do my damnedest to go out there and buy everyone's land from them and negotiate a fair price. But you gotta help me out. If I run into someone out there, and I didn't know, maybe I was gonna say, hey, I have 12 parcels to acquire, I could only acquire one. Well, if that were the case, maybe you're saying, hey, how hard are you negotiating? How reasonable are you being? But it's the exact opposite. I think I'm gonna be able to acquire all of these parcels except for one. And, I'm just gonna need the board to step up and, and take that property. So,
and if I could, in the agreement that the Redevelopment Authority negotiated with Route 44 Development, it clearly lays out a process for the authority to take property. It also lays out a one-sided agreement that protects and indemnifies the town. And, should the Redevelopment Authority need to do that, and I know George didn't like this when it was done, but it really indemnifies the town, so the developer's taking all the financial risk. He just needs you as the redevelopment authority to act in the town's best interest and to take, hopefully only one property, if it even is that, to allow this development to go forward. But again, you are protected financially and all liability with how the document has been written by town council.
Okay, thanks, Mike. The only other question that I had that we haven't really addressed yet was gas, natural gas to the site. I don't know where you stand with them. I think it's a key aspect to the development of this site. Did you have any input on that, or?
that's the one thing, I can't answer that. I don't know anything about it, other than it has not come up at any meetings that I've been at. The only issues, the only issue that's really a challenge is that electrical issue on the 5 megawatts. Other than that, I know there were issues with the water pressure from the water district, that's been solved. So I don't think gas, I guess, since I haven't heard about it, I don't think it's much of an issue.
Okay. So just for a roundabout, I guess, time schedule, what have you, roughly by June, you're figuring that you'll be through your environmental impact study, your MEPA process, that end of it, and then out there marketing to the states to draw a good impact of clientele, hopefully, to our community. You've heard from many boards and citizens, you know, what we're looking for this site, and we appreciate the partnership that Route 44 has brought to this community, and I'm speaking that for myself. Most of the impacts that I see will be water and electricity, because of the investment that this community's made in trying to draw business to this community. Not only from the planning processes that the town meeting has voted on to really groom this area. Probably my biggest concern would be the economics. Are we missing the window of the economic boom?
No, and it's something I've been concerned about because it's my money hanging out there, okay? And I've talked to the brokers about that extensively, and what they have told me is there's no other site. And if you look at what's really interesting, if you look at the real estate market, the large warehouse, regional warehouse distribution market is booming, and it's going to continue to boom, everybody feels, for the foreseeable future. Because what's happening is, as industrial space used to be readily available in Boston and the surrounding area. But if you look at Boston, all the industrial space is gone in Boston. You know, over where the convention center is in Boston used to be huge old warehouses, gone. The North End, there were warehouses, gone. South Boston, there were warehouses, gone. The same things happened in Somerville, Cambridge, all the surrounding communities. There is no support. And, as we all know, the e-commerce is really driving everything these days, whether it be Amazon or people who do business with Amazon or Wayfair or companies like that. And what they're all looking for is they're all looking for these mega, warehouses, these mega regional warehouse distribution facilities. I had a talk recently, about a week or so ago, with my broker, and he said, I can't tell you, I absolutely love that site. I think it's the best site around. And he said, but people don't know about it. We got to put a brochure together. And I said, I understand that, but what I want to do is I want to put together a brochure that's not selling a pipe dream. I want to put together a brochure that says, we own this, we have the permits for this, this is where the electricity's coming in, this is how we're going to deal with wastewater, this is how we're going to deal with water, bang, bang, bang. Not just general sketches of the issues and solutions, concrete solutions with expenses attached to each item. So he said, that's great. That's the way to do it. So, as I say, I think, and I knew you'd have this question. I checked with VHB today, and they said we're expecting the FEIR certificate by mid-April. So if you say mid-April, end of May, we're going to have that. Prior to that, I'm going to have this brochure. It's one of the top priorities in my life, getting this brochure together. And what they're planning on doing, he says, I have companies from California that are looking for 1 million square feet in Massachusetts. We're only 35 miles or so south of Boston. And so he says, your site's the only site, but we got to get the word out there. We got to, target these national companies and let them know about it. And so he said, I'm telling you, I think once we send that brochure out, we're going to have a lot of action, and we're going to have signed deals, inside of a year. And my goal really is to have shovels in the ground maybe this time next year or shortly thereafter. I mean, and that's really what I'd like. And
Well, I appreciate you coming tonight, expressing some, giving us an update of where we are in the process. I think that's important. I want to thank the Water District Commissioners for coming tonight, and everybody else who spent the time with us to ask these questions. I personally thought it was necessary for us to get together.
Good.
It's
No,
a
I,
long process, and I'm sure out of this meeting is gonna stem a lot more questions, and I know that you've always been a good partner in getting that information to us. It was more for the public.
sure. No, it's a pleasure always to get together with you folks, and as I say, everybody knows not everybody, but Steve and Michael know my cell phone, and so anything comes up, feel free to give me a call, and I just can't tell you how excited I am about this project, and it's the number one priority in my life right now, just getting that brochure together and, getting this thing done. And it's been a long process, but I just thought that this site had kind of a checkered past, so I didn't want to start marketing it prematurely. I wanted to totally reposition it, identify the issues, solve them, and have price tags next to each one of the issues. This is what your wastewater treatment plant's going to cost, bing, bing, bing. And we're just about there.
Thank you. Any other questions before we're?
I just have one. We didn't talk about solar. Are you looking at a solar farm or solar on the individual roofs or?
Well, in the urban renewal plan, you didn't want solar farms, so we have to have it on top of the buildings.
Okay.
So I think they'll all have solar on the buildings. I mean, particularly a 1 million square footer, you get a lot of solar panels up there. And of course, the big thing now is storing solar in batteries. Yeah, so
That's what, yeah, I was gonna.
Will can tell us more about that than,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just, and what, I think this is a corridor. You didn't use that word, like 495, 3, 6,
Oh, it is. Well, I mean,
95. We're like a corridor here.
well, Route 44 is the corridor. You didn't have that east-west connection that you now
Right.
do, so
Right.
just, and as I say, you look at Cisco. I mean, that's, everybody does the type of due diligence that Cisco did. And one of my brokers actually did the Cisco deal, and he talked to whoever, I forget the fellow's name, whoever the key guy was over at Cisco, and said, can I give you out as a resource to people who might want to inquire about how do you like the area, how do you like the circulation, how do you like the access, how do you like the workforce? He says, I love it. He says, I'd be happy to tell them, it's awesome. Just, he couldn't say enough good things about that.
Can you share the brochure with Stephen as well, when it's ready?
Sure, yeah, no, we'll definitely give you a copy of the brochure.
Is the wastewater plant gonna be a reuse plant, or is it just gonna be direct to discharge?
Can't tell you.
Okay.
Steve?
Cannot tell you.
I was gonna make the motion to adjourn.
Feel free.
If everybody's ready, I'd like to make a motion that the water commissioners adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, well, you second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn for the redevelopment authority.
Second.
Do we want to pick a date for our next meeting?
Oh, our next meeting.
Yes.
Oh, yes, we have to meet again.
Thank you
We have
for
the next
reminding me.
meeting.
It was on my list.
We already have one of those.
Thanks, George.
Good.
Thank you.
Great to see you folks, all
I guess
right.
we're on a first-name basis, right?
That's right, hey, look at that.
I'm Joanna and you're George.
I like
What do we
that.
got for a
I
date,
like
guys?
that.
And you tell the truth, so that's what I like.
Spring Street. Old Spring Street, now dead end,
Oh,
is
well, okay.
above the new Spring Street.
What do you got for a
It's
date?
called the
Anybody got a
Spring
date?
Street Extension. And that's all I was telling him. I said, that's
The
exactly.
second Tuesday?
Sorry, again.
12th, the 12th,
No, you come in
March
from.
12th.
Oh, I wasn't sure if they bought
We
that
want
too.
to make
so
a
it looks
motion.
like
Hey, hold on, guys. Hey, we're still in open
I'll
session.
make a motion, March 12th, 6 o'clock. Typical room.
I will second that.
Motion made second. All in favor for March 12th, our next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we had a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned at 6:23.